Hey everyone, so I know this isn't really a hidden headline, but we're going to talk about opioids. So, opioids are probably the most abused substance in the entire history of the world. They've been around for millennia. People have smoked opium forever. Opioids, they aren't new. In the 1800s, entire wars were fought over the right to import opium into China. Not to stop it, but to sell more of it. The British Empire waged the Opium Wars to protect their drug trade. This wasn't about medicine, it was about money. Seems like it always has been, and it probably always will be. Heroin and morphine, both far more potent than raw opium, are just refined derivatives of the same plant. Over time, we simply got better at isolating the compounds that numb pain and create dependence. The ancient Sumerians called the opium poppy the joy plant. But today, we're not just dealing with natural opiates. We're dealing with synthetic and semi-synthetic opioids, engineered in labs, pushed through supply chains, and often far deadlier. This isn't just a health crisis. It's the modern evolution of a global commodity, one that's been weaponized, monetized, and sanitized for centuries. The synthetic opiate everyone is probably the most familiar with is probably fentanyl. And fentanyl wasn't designed to be sold on the streets. It was created in 1959 for use in hospitals, a synthetic opioid so powerful that it was reserved only for surgeries and end-stage cancer patients. But today, it's mass-produced in illegal labs, cut into fake pills, sold on the streets, and it's killing people way faster than heroin ever did. And I'm sure as everyone knows, I guess everyone knows at this point, that opiates are extraordinarily addictive. As a nation, we've had addiction issues with opioids since at least the Civil War, when soldiers were given morphine. But the current epidemic in America, I guess it's been coined an opioid crisis. It began with Purdue Pharma. So in 1996, Purdue Pharma launched a revolutionary new painkiller, OxyContin. Backed by the powerful Sackler family, the company unleashed an aggressive marketing campaign claiming Oxy was safe, virtually non-addictive. Their claim that fewer than 1% of patients became addicted. And that stat, that came from a 5-sentence letter to the editor of a medical journal written just by a doctor who had only seen the effects of OxyContin in a hospital setting, with pills given under supervision for short time periods. That stat wasn't from any kind of study or large monitored groups, being studied. Just one doctor talking about his experiences with his patients. But it didn't matter. Purdue used that headline like it was gospel. Sales reps were trained to say addiction was rare. Fewer than 1% of patients become addicted. Doctors were bribed with lavish dinners, vacations, even huge bonuses for writing a high number of prescriptions. And then the FDA, they approved a label that said Oxy had a delayed release mechanism believed to reduce abuse. The FDA official who approved that label, later he took a job at Purdue Pharma. So between 1999 and 2010, prescriptions were handed out for opioids literally quadrupled. There were towns like Kermit, West Virginia, with a population of only 400, where there were millions of pills being shipped in. Entire communities were addicted. This wasn't a medical accident. It was a well-thought-out and pushed-out business plan. Whistleblowers tried to warn us, a few doctors pushed back, but Purdue's influence reached everywhere, from Congress to the local media. And behind the scenes, the Sacklers were laundering their reputation, making massive donations to museums, universities, medical schools that would later name entire wings after them. The Sacklers were earning billions, while small towns were buried in pills and addiction. And as addiction soared, overdoses became the leading cause of death for Americans under 50. Think about that. And when states finally sued, internal documents proved that Purdue and the Sackler family knew how addictive OxyContin was all along, right from the very beginning. They'd called high-prescribing doctors whales and tracked them by how many pills they'd pushed. In 2007, Purdue paid a $600 million fine for their part in the overdose deaths, but that was merely a drop in the bucket for them. The Sacklers, they were never criminally charged. They just rebranded. They transferred billions into their offshore accounts, and by the time the lawsuits began piling up, they had already declared bankruptcy. but definitely not before completely shielding their, personal fortunes. What about the victims who had already become addicted? Well, now maybe Oxy was harder to get and people could no longer afford it, so many turned to heroin. And then, as we mentioned, came fentanyl, and now there's xylazine. This is a crisis totally manufactured in the name of profit, and it has killed over 500,000 Americans. And that number, it just continues to go up. And then Purdue Pharma, that same company that fueled the epidemic, well, they've tried to rebrand and sell addiction treatment drugs like Suboxone, methadone, buprenorphine. I don't know. Anyway, they wanted to call the company a public benefit company. But the public, well, they didn't benefit. There were already over 500,000 dead, yet no one was inherently held responsible. No one went to prison. I mean, even after the $7.4 billion they're supposed to pay out in settlements, the Sacklers will still be worth billions, with companies just hiding behind new names, not to mention the drug companies that they still own overseas. And how is it that Americans have been battling the opioid epidemic for nearly 40 years? And I mean, some say that currently it's worse than it's ever been. In recent years, Congress passed 3 laws authorizing the appropriation of $10.6 billion in spending to combat the opioid epidemic. But little headway's been made, if any. It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, to bring it back to Purdue and the Sackler family, there were no breaking news alerts, no manhunts, no perp walks, just deaths. Millions of deaths. No, thousands of deaths. Silence, and a family name scrubbed clean with museum plaques and university buildings. The opioid crisis didn't just happen. It was totally engineered by billionaires in suits, backed by fake science, approved by the FDA, marketed to doctors, and buried under settlements. I mean, over 500,000 lives have been lost, and there's no one behind bars. It's just one of the most devastating crimes in American history, disguised as healthcare and forgotten by design. I mean, obviously, I don't know what the answer is to the opioid crisis. I wish I did, but I'd like to hear what you guys think. How much you knew about this, how much you care. I don't know. Write it in the comments. As usual, thanks for listening till the end. I'm Caroline, and this is Hidden Headlines. I'll see y'all soon. Bye.